I'm going to read some poems for you. Some of them are rather old poems. A couple of them I wrote just a couple days ago. So, yeah, the first one is called Bruised Apple. And this one is, I'm going to try to do it from memory. So if I really mess up, I'll say Row, Row, Row Your Boat, which is my favorite poem of all time. And we'll bond over that. Okay. The first time I saw the agave root where my chin should have been, in the mirror, with tequila on my fingers, I screamed the most magnificent scream I'll ever yell. I said, "That's just great, Mom! But what will the begonias do while I'm away?" My mom said, "Stay. You're much more valuable to all of us than you think you are." The first time I saw the orangutan where my chi used to be, I got heavy with the curse words. I said, "Damn it all to hell, girl, go if you've got to go. If you've got to, leave. Don't be lazy. Sally Ann Montgomery, go if you've got to go." And she said, "No, you're much more valuable to all of us than you think you are." I fantasize sometimes about the person I could be, and I resent him. How did he get shoes? How does a man like that get shoes? Where does he sleep? What does he know that I don't know? Does he swim deep and see the coral I can't find, and see the clownfish there unwind after a long, hard day of glowing with a fire we can't see? What does he dream? Does he dream of me? The first time I saw the accountant where my beard used to be, I got really into fishing out on Powell Lake. And in a fit of wet despair, I put my heels on the stern and shouted loudly to the world of my intention to be angry and ironic for the rest of my life. And I bent my knees. The fish said, "Please, you're much more valuable to all of us than you think you are." I taste what you don't taste, and any apple to me is sweeter than the sweetest thing you have ever written, and any kiss on my cheek is softer than the most delicate wind you have ever known. You should fantasize more often about the person you should be. That's the part 2 of that one. This next poem is called Spring, and it's not spring now, which sucks. But it will be spring. Hopefully we'll all be alive when it comes, because you never know. And I'm not promising you that you'll not die soon. So this is spring. Spring is here. Ice cream trucks are on the go again. Green hangs from streets where previously the only hanging things were shoes from power lines. Isn't it a right and good thing that spring is here? I can hardly contain my leafy enthusiasms. Stock in coffee is falling, but so are prices. So that's good. Thanks. This is another short one. It's from a song that I wrote that I play with my buddy Kyle over there. So it rhymes, and it is called Mariposa. 200 white corn tortillas in the kitchen door. What are they for? 100,002 monarch butterfly wings flutter, and all that I hear is the stutter of Julia's heart. 17 petals from 17 flowers on each of the 17 milestones, marking the 17 miles from Julia's front door to mine. Done. Yeah, that's it. Okay, this one I have written down because I failed to memorize it. It's called The Square Carousel. On a plastic horse by a gray beach in a town she had never visited, the only yellow thing in a world of sand. Where's the balloon? Some distant field, amid wheat stalks, drifting with certitude. The only red thing in a bloody world. The coffee endured a troubled birth, tasted like the color brown, and did little to warm Eugene against the coming rain. It was, however, the only kind thing in a world of trust funds. On the anniversary of her 50th year teaching English at McDougall Elementary, Miss Amanda turned over the last ungraded exam and assessed a student's response to a question concerning the nature of good and evil. The response read, "I know it. I just know it." Miss Amanda looked out at the window, the only smiling thing in a world of teeth. The 5-year-old painter lay under the covers with a lantern, flipping through a monograph of Picasso. And the very moment he saw La Guernica for the first time, he knew with all of his heart that he would be a real estate agent when he grew up, and he would row his boat gently down the stream for all the rest of his days. The small blue boy and the little green girl sat on a park bench. He held his hands up and they shook. She held her hands up and took his and put them against her chest, the only honest palm reader in the Tri-County area. The composer sat on a chair farthest from the piano in the dead of night, with a paper in her lap and a pencil in each hand, the only dreaming thing in a world of sleep. Thanks. Okay, this is a new one. It's called I Too Am in Arcadia. Do I have anything? No, I've got nothing to say about this. So. Ed loves Leonora. Leonora loves Strasbourg. Strasbourg loves Renault. Renault loves Leonora. The doctor is mad. He sits on a pool table complaining to anyone who will listen that when he was young, an orange was a treat. And now all the children are drowning in citrus. He prognosticates the lavender out of next spring and spews it out on the drawing room floor for anyone to slip on. The doctor is mad. You and I will be married at dawn. The Chekhov guns will all go off. The scythes will with one motion sweep through the air and slice the limes for our toddies, and fly away together blade and blade as though they were the wings of an unseen herald of some other's end. Ed loves Leonora. Leonora loves Strasbourg. Strasbourg is in the throes of depression, and the maid shouts out of the kitchen, "When I was 5, I dreamed recurringly of a pair of black wings, leathery like a bat's, that beat in the corner of my room, and would swoop down at me, and just before they covered my face, my grandfather would burst into the room with his leather cap and goggles, and he would take me out of the window. I don't have Grandpa anymore, but I have you. You and I will be married at dawn. The Chekhov guns will all go off. Strasbourg loves Renault. Renault is a word doctor. He carves into the bedstead, "If I die before you, scatter my ashes in the travel section. I wish to be near the Ganges, that river named by the dyslexic Frenchman who stood upon its banks and shouted, 'I win!' And when Renault finished his carving, the maid walks in, and under her heavy eye he whispers, 'It is with a wide wonder that I stood when I was 22 on the edge of a vast field of Joshua trees, having not been told by anyone of the existence of Joshua trees, and I beheld the gross graveyard of Dr. Seuss refuse, baking dull green under the sun. So I guess it was the edge that I could have had when I was younger that made me retreat into my den of oak. And I suppose that when a lantern burns 20 feet into the trees from the opening of a tent, there becomes 2 different types of people. I too live in paradise. And when the Chekhov guns go off, you and I will be married at dawn. Et in Arcadia, ego." Thanks. Okay, the next 2 are poems that I wrote quite a long time ago, but so if you've heard them before, it's a good time to get a drink. But I remember having read, I don't know if it was a Narrow Chimney, but it was a Narrow Chimney-esque thing 2 years ago at least, and I read it. And I read an earlier version of the following poem that was not very good, but here's the current version. I'm going to do this one from memory. Again, if I mess up the row your boat thing. It's called Mr. Smith the Pirate Killer Part 1. A little boy sat on his grandfather's lap, and the grandfather said, "Always remember, the idea of a sunflower is the only thing about a sunflower that glows in the dark." Now the boy is a man. This man owns a house. In this house there is a bedroom. In this bedroom there is a table with 1 drawer, and in this drawer there is a book with 300 first pages, and every page is blank. And every night before he goes to bed, the man takes the book out and stares at the pages until just before he begins to feel strange, because he is very afraid of seeming strange. This man owns a goldfish, and one day the goldfish says, "Look," Every day I see you take out this book and stare at the pages. Why don't you write something for once? So the man takes out a pen and writes, "The day I take advice from a goldfish will be the day that I escape from my awful existence." And no sooner does he put down the pen when a giant ship crashes through the side of the house, and a ship captain leans over the railing and says, "I want you to fight pirates with me." So the man closes his eyes and whispers, "The idea of a sunflower is the only thing about a sunflower that glows in the dark." And when he opens his eyes, the ship is gone. Now the man is grown up. He has recently become famous due to the publication of his first book, Mr. Smith the Pirate Killer. However, he is still lonely and spends most of his time at the zoo. He is particularly drawn to the penguins. Now in the zoo, there is the penguin enclave that is bordered by windows, and every day, hundreds of children walk by and tap on the glass. And there's this polite penguin, who's very polite, but every penguin has his breaking point. So one day the penguin says, politely, "Excuse me, will you please stop tapping on my glass?" And there's this kid, and the kid says, "What are you going to do? Fly away?" Now the man knows that nobody responds to a challenge like an angry penguin. So he waits until midnight. And at the stroke of midnight, he watches the penguin spread his wings, run as fast as he can, and fly away. And as the penguin gets smaller and smaller in the distance, the man closes his eyes and says, "The idea of a sunflower is the only thing about a sunflower that glows in the dark." And when he opens his eyes, the penguin is gone. More years pass, and the man decides he has become lonely long enough, and he goes in search of a wife. He's heard of this one woman who is known to have the biggest nose in the Tri-County area. And it's the very same day that he goes to visit this woman, she says, "I'm leaving. I'm leaving and I'm never coming back." A little boy says, "Where are you going to go?" And the woman says, "I'm going to go where the bumblebees fly as high as eagles, where the streets are still cobbled and people open doors for people and nobody tells you have a big nose. I'm going to go where people understand Shakespeare and the words me and you rhyme and the clouds form the shape of the alphabet if you ask real, real nice and big noses smell great. I'm going to go and I'm never coming back." And so the man closes his eyes and says, "The idea of a sunflower is the only thing about a sunflower that glows in the dark." And when he opens his eyes, the woman is gone. And nobody in the Tri-County area ever saw her again. Now he is old. He sits on a park by the ocean. He concentrates on feeding the seagulls. Suddenly the seagulls explode in a cry of squawking and feathers, and he looks up and sees a ship. Leaning over the railing is a ship captain. And standing next to the ship captain is a young woman with a very large nose. And circling the mast high above is a robust penguin with outstretched wings. And the captain says, "I still need you to fight pirates with me." So the man boards the ship and they set sail in a direction that isn't particularly north or south, and not quite east or west. And they sail and sail for days and days, until one night, when it is the man's turn to watch out for icebergs, he sees the faint outline of land and a vast meadow of sunflowers faintly glowing under a very dark sky. I kind of messed it up, but didn't mess it up too bad. Okay, this next one is also an old one. It's called Exit Pursued by a Bear. So there I was, halfway up a 100-story dandelion, sleeping on the left side of a queen bed. "Let's combine," she says. "Let's do naked origami," she says. "It'll be good for you." I know it's good for me, and I am not a graceful hedonist. I don't carry excess well, and I've never been able to juggle. "Let's combine," she says, and so I open the window and leap out with a cry of, "The seven befalls a perpetual bachelor!" and begin my descent. Before she said she didn't want to grow old with me, didn't even want to hit 25 with me, I had been doing okay. I had been eating less and planned to switch completely over to sunlight and rainwater because I liked where I stood. I could have built a home there. The only thing standing in my way were my legs. And like the last dregs in a cup of tea, I was so well conditioned to expect to be used that I was almost disappointed that she was reasonable and I understood her. "Let's combine," she says, and so I jump. "But wait," she cries, "I was going to make espresso." Too late. I catch the wind and go soaring over Flagstaff, dropping haikus into chimneys and dandelion corpses into glasses of lemonade, waving at the children as I go by. "Look, Mama," I hear from below, "an existentialist has figured it out." I was born miles above the ground and have been falling at a rate of 9.8 meters per second ever since. So I am very well in tune with the idea of a blast radius, and I know my ballistics, but don't question me about those mechanics. Just know that after 24 years, a falling man has finally figured out how to appreciate the ground. This is my last one. I wrote it yesterday. It is called The Flying of Martin by Apollo. And I've got nothing interesting to say about this. Okay, so I'll just say. Gosh, my mouth is so dry. I definitely need more whiskey. That's true. I must be allergic to Christmas trees. Okay. Where are those that went before us? Which of you knew the ossified heel upon the berm boiled, where the edge met the air, and whatever spills, spills alone? I was not asked. The cannons never reached out to me. I, who will die over the southwest, perhaps in a dirigible, or a balloon self-supporting. With all the dead of night marshaled below, 2 pillars on either side of me arc from cloud, lightning fixed into the ground. I askew content. I exalted was not asked. Where are those that went before you? It was a shift from cobble to asphalt that the earth heard on its skin when it trembled and you felt it. It was the moving of us from distinct word lives into a mud of common thought, and you felt it, and the earth trembled. I ought to have been asked, I thought, on the day that the priest immolation drunk poured gasoline in the streets and thought up fire. I awake with my clothes against the nakedness of day, and my shadow is my secret from the sun, and I say nothing. Where are those that went before me? My idols are with me on my bedroom walls, blonde colossi with stripes on their shirts and celadon eyes, whale tails, fluke foam, yellow grass, wheat iris. My father was a Saxon. There is a mist. I am with my friends, and we are at home. Somebody says, let's go downtown. And I go out into the street, and they follow me. The fog thickens. I go on ahead, and soon I am alone. I hear their footsteps behind me. I know where we are going, and I see ahead some familiar window crack, some known crosswalk with a known white paint scuff. I hear that there is laughing behind me. The fog rolls in heavier. And this is the call we peer through, eyes infant wide. This is the ether we swim. This is the lacquer of vanity. I am here and you are there. We came from home and we are going downtown, and I can't see you. Can you see me? Where are those that went before us? Silence the saxophones. New Orleans sickens with surfeit of them. Bourbon rivers and gutters and pianos painted electric candy, and I play 'em. All the zombies of New Orleans entrapped in marshmallows. All the whiskey of Peru stained in the beach sand. All of the musicians in the elementary school huddled on the roof. Every umbrella of London sits just inside the fireplace. Every butterfly on earth listens to you at the same time. It is morning. Andrew, who had no home, stood in the weather, looking up. Every drop of rain became red wine for precisely a minute, and Andrew laughed and said, "They thought they could get me, and they almost did, but everything is different now." And then the wine was rain again. All the forgotten hands and feet are held, they think, for the very first time. All the sisters of St. Anthony's Abbey awake in the night, and all the sisters keep their eyes shut tight. All the blisters that belonged to the McDougal Middle School bobcasts throbbed identically in the palms of 17 mothers. And you tell me desperately that you wish not to be such a mother with a little blister in her hand, and I say, yes, I understand, but I don't. All the sisters of St. Anthony's Abbey awake in the night, and all the sisters keep their eyes shut tight. We carry them between the fabric and the skin. That is the weight of all of them there on your shoulder. And as I can only give you what I have between my fabric and skin, I have nothing to fear. I wear my clothes against the nakedness of day, and I take my call from my nose, and I cry into the red wine rain, "Here I am, who goes before you." Thanks.